In the previous episode on physics of natural intelligence, I have argued that the mental processes are parts of the physical world. But the mind, and in particular consciousness, seems so different from any physical object that some people say that understanding them is beyond the reach of science. However, I think there is a method of studying consciousness. We know how to attack this problem. We need to exclude everything that is clearly impossible, and whatever is left must contain the truth. More recently, this principle is known as the totalitarian principle, that everything not forbidden is compulsory. This principle has been very successful at the fundamental level to find new elementary particles simply by postulating their existence and checking that there is no law of physics that contradicts their existence. And indeed, they have been found experimentally in big accelerators, for example in CERN. Most recently, this was a Higgs boson, which was found in 2012. So let us look at the fundamental level, what is possible and what is not possible. We know that there are only four fundamental forces: two nuclear forces, electricity and magnetism, and gravity. The two nuclear forces are clearly not relevant to the functioning of the brain. Therefore, we are left only with electromagnetism and gravity. But at this point, someone may ask, how do we know that there is no fifth force which is responsible for consciousness? Surprisingly, the answer is no, there cannot be such force, because it would be found by now. How can I be so strong about it? This comes from the Feynman diagrams which describe interaction of elementary particles in time and space. If we postulate that there is an existence of new force Y, then it must be accompanied with new particle X, which is also unknown. But there is a symmetry of the Feynman diagram, and we can flip the diagram across the diagonal and have an equivalent diagram which tells us that if we collide electron with positon, then via this new unknown force it must create a pair of new particles. And physicists are very good at colliding electrons at positons and CERN. And they did this, and they found nothing. They found nothing over a large range of interaction distances and strength of any new forces relative to gravity. If we look at the distances relevant to the brain, some centimeters, that we can read from the diagram that there is no new force down to about 1,000th of the strength of gravity. But gravity is already weak. It is irrelevant. Astronauts in the outer space can think equally well as on the Earth. Therefore, we can exclude such new forces and exclude gravity, and we are left with electromagnetism only. Therefore, consciousness must be electromagnetic in nature. This is a part of what is known as the core theory, which says that the everyday life supervenes on quantum field theory level, and in particular on electromagnetism that is relevant to the brain. Essentially, everyday life is electromagnetic interaction of 100 or so elements, and that's all. The whole complexity of the world you see, including life, comes from this fundamental simplicity, which is well understood and have been tested experimentally to an extreme accuracy. Of course, there are unexplained phenomena such as black holes or dark matter, or maybe there are more fundamental strings at the low level, but these unknown phenomena are not relevant to our problem. The bottom line is that the consciousness is physical and the fundamental physics is well understood here. So it excludes quite a lot of ideas, in particular any supernatural interactions. Physics excludes the idea that consciousness was given to us externally by some supernatural force. Such external influence is not possible. Consciousness must have evolved in the process of natural evolution, and other animals have also evolved. Therefore, it is quite likely that mammals and birds and other higher animals are also conscious, and maybe also some lower animals. For example, there are discussions whether octopuses are conscious or not. Fundamental physics prunes out almost all paranormal ideas. For example, zombies are impossible because there is nothing beyond physical realm. If the body of a hypothetical zombie is identical to the body of a conscious person, then there is no difference between them, and the zombie must be conscious too. Telekinesis, precognition, extrasensory perception and similar are clearly impossible too. And of course the mind cannot leave the body. After considering spiritual concepts, we will return to the quantum physics in the next episode.